Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Sterling Still. Welcome back to the Pixar playlist. It has been so long, and I absolutely love this series from Toy Story all the way up to Luca, and now Turning Red, which is what I'll be giving you my review on from Disney Plus. And I hope you absolutely enjoyed it because I did. But again, I know we are not on the same par when it comes to movies like this, or when it comes to Pixar's approach to making a film like this that might be controversial to some, but that's okay. That is what we are all here for, to express our opinions without throwing anybody else under the bus. So before I begin, but you know what? You know what? We can actually start this review off fresh because you guys have seen all of my Pixar reviews. And because of that, those have probably been the videos that have compelled you to subscribe and to compelled you to keep coming back, and to keep seeing my approach on the films. Thank you very much. So I trust and believe and have faith that you guys will make the Turning Red review go viral. So I don't even need to say no more. Let's get right into it. The Disney Plus original Turning Red Pixar, the newest released by Pixar, sees Mei Lee, who is a confident, dorky 13-year-old girl torn between staying as her mother's dutiful, loyal daughter. Dutiful, not beautiful. She is beautiful, but I said dutiful. Someone that is submissive and respectful and obedient daughter, and the chaos of growing pains. As if that was not enough, the changes to her interests, relationships, and body, whenever she stimulates strong emotions like joy and sadness and rage, she will poof into a giant red panda. And for a teenager, that is practically always stimulating strong emotions. Woo! SOS fam, let me tell you something right now. Disney and Pixar have just possibly taken the biggest gamble in their entire career / filmography by giving us what we call Turning Red. A spontaneous change from Pixar's business as usual, Pixar's blueprint plan, Pixar's usual format. Turning Red decides to vacate from adding just another fun fantasy comedy to the library and devote every millisecond into giving us one of the most nuanced coming-of-age stories told in recent years, which is, in fact, now looking at this, it is my new favorite Pixar film. And I haven't seen Encanto or Raya and the Last Dragon, because if I'm going to review the newest Disney movies, why not do everything else before? Y'all know what that means, right? But as of right now, Luca, Turning Red is my favorite animated film of the decade right now. We are only in the beginning of the 2020s, but this is already my favorite of the decade right now. So all of the reasons that people can call this movie controversial and off-kilter for the studio are the same reasons as to why I think that this is the best thing to happen to Pixar since the final days of the Toy Story franchise, which was the end of an era. And after the end of an era came a new slew of much different Pixar films. Kind of like how Marvel gives us a new slew of projects. But when Turning Red was one of their... You know what? I'll get to that soon. But what I'm trying to get to is that you can call this movie controversial and off-kilter all you like, but there is no denying all the realism and the accuracy and the boldness that went into making this a very universally resonant coming-of-age story, and not just any old girl has feelings for boy story. No, it's not just about a girl who might have feelings towards a boy band. It's just about the atmosphere and the nature of the teenage years, especially when you grew up in the 2000s / late 90s. Like this is like a film that takes place in the 2000s, in the late 90s / late 90s. It doesn't, hold on, let me get myself together. It takes place in 2002, but if you grew up around the late 90s also, you still seen these things, so you know. But anyway, Pixar's reputation for breeding multifaceted, multidimensional, and or wholesome original narratives rarely falls short. Rarely. Like I don't even know a time where Pixar has never disappointed me, with Luca being an exception. Like when Luca came around, those traits felt M.I.A. Now don't get me wrong, the animation was very Pop Tropica-esque and the colors popped. But then Turning Red managed to bloom the bed of roses back up with quality and maturity. I feel that no matter how you interpret the concept of Pixar's coming of age approach with Turning Red, you can easily nitpick the obvious metaphors throughout. For example, the red panda. When the first details for Turning Red were unveiled in Pixar's upcoming slate, I thought the idea of a girl transforming into a giant red animal was the most random thing they could come up with. Like, Pixar is too good to come up with an idea like girl turns into animal. But then I remember that this is a studio that can turn nothingness into a narrative. They improved this over the years. They improved this 25 plus years. At first glance, I said to myself, wondering if the panda is probably a symbolism for when puberty ensues. And then I put the pieces together when this was described as a coming-of-age comedy about a girl that's trying to go into her teenage years feeling free while also honoring her parents' expectations and needs and living up to her boundaries in the household. But in some caliber, this is holding her back. And I already knew right then and there. It could start off great, but we'll see where it ends up. And where it ends up is much better than where it started. So rightfully so, the red panda is indeed a literal metaphor for puberty because it is hairy, but the panda also represents that piece of heritage that floods through every generation in a family. Like, it is the heritage that runs through every family, every branch, every line of branches in the family tree. So, Domee Shi, excuse me if I pronounced that wrong, but Domee Shi, the one that brought us Bayo before Incredibles 2, and the visionary team makes the wise decision of choosing the red panda to accurately present the goals that must be spiritually reached by Mei and her family, like balance, independence, security, and nonchalance. The red panda being a go-to animal was a no-brainer before the growing pains concept even came into the mix. But with the red panda being a native to the eastern Himalayas and southwestern China, it was very obvious for them to pick something like this for the symbolism and also for the environment, because this is a Chinese Canadian. But with the story taking place in 2002, there's a bit of nostalgia for any Gen Zers out there, and this helps us to relate to Mei and her friends and their interest in trends. That rhymes. Her Mei and her friends and her interest in her trends. But this is off script, and I don't usually be spoiling the Pixar movies for you, but there is a moment in this film where as soon as I saw this, I knew I can understand why everybody was calling it the most mature, the most erotic, the most horny. I mean, I get it. The characters can get horny at times. But that is very accurate. The characters, the girls, Mei and her friends can be a little horny from, this is before the social media days. This is before social media. This is before iPhones or Instagram. This is 2002. So flip phones was like the newest thing, was like the top thing. So before anybody could just look up sexual images on the internet, these girls would sketch these boys in the fantasy that they dreamed of, like in their sexual fantasies, and that is exactly what happened. Because there was this guy in the market shop there was this guy in the sorry, I'm getting a little off topic. I don't know. There's this guy in the store. Let's just say that there was this guy behind the counter in the store that they were fantasizing about, and suddenly she kept getting these thoughts about what she wishes he would look like. So she was drawing the man jacked and naked and dressing like a merman. But you know what that means. The girl is having strong hormones, and is leading to her having these erotic fantasies. Okay? So to give you an idea of how mature and how horny it is, yes, that's how far they went. So, despite whether you are a male or female, we knew what our favorite things were growing up. We knew what things we were into, and we knew what made us click and what made us stimulate strong emotions, and any and all that our parents tried their best to keep us from experiencing, like the Justin Bieber concert, or the concert of your other favorite boy bands like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, One Direction. But each of these factors fit into trying to resonate with everyone. Because not even about boy bands, but just with everything. Everything that you wanted to do as a teenager, you couldn't, or you tried to experience it, but you were being held back by your parents because they were afraid that you would go against their expectations. And Mei, she didn't want to go against her parents' expectations, but she wanted to live her own life. So, touching back on the spiritual definitions of the red panda, I perceive Mei's friend circle, which I absolutely love, as a preferred route to achieve peace, serenity, balance, and independence. And it is so rare to see a teenager honoring their parents' teachings while feeling unrestrained to live their own life in their own circle of friends and colleagues, to make their own memories. But it can be a challenge. And also, let me point this out. I love Mei's friends. I said this on my IG review. I love Mei's friends. That, like, the way they treat her makes them my new favorite Pixar sidekicks. I didn't really have a favorite Pixar sidekicks, but the ones that stood out to me in the past were Tomater and all the toys, all the extra toys. But when you see these girls treat her, no matter whether she's a panda or not, it's so refreshing, because it is so rare to see a coming of age comedy that takes a mature approach, where the friends of the protagonist are not negative, do not negatively peer pressure her into going. They didn't force her to sneak out. Mei said, I can't do this. I have to stay home and follow. And they went without her. They respected her, but they felt a little disappointed because she wasn't coming, but they weren't pissed off at her. They weren't calling her names. They weren't giving her labels and titles and calling her too loyal or goody two shoes or too innocent. They weren't doing that. They went on with their lives. They went on with their days. But whenever Mei chose to go against her parents, that had nothing to do with her friends. But I can still respect the fact that you write an animated coming of age comedy where even when you're taking a realistic approach, you make the friends not overly positive in a cartoonish, very animated way. I mean, they are animated. They're very animated. It's actually based off of anime style mannerisms. But the way you write their characters, you're writing best friends. You're not writing empty two-dimensional besties. You're writing best friends who in real life should be respecting your decisions and should be supporting you no matter what. That was a prolonged segment. That was way off script, but that's okay. You guys get what I'm saying. I'm saying I love her friends. Her friends are like the best Pixar protagonists I've ever seen. But touching back on striking the balance of living your own life with your own friends and trying to honor your parents' upbringings, when the parents' expectations for perfection matter more, especially when you are the child of an immigrant. When you're the child of an immigrant and you were born in America and you want to experience the everyday American lifestyles, you want to be free, but you're kind of feeling held back by your parents' traditions. And instead of just when all this matters more than the efforts made by the child to be the best versions of themselves, I know it can feel so hard. It can feel so tight. It can feel so claustrophobic, like you're not let loose to just let your arms swing around and go free. Now, I know for a fact that Mei's friend circle is not a poor influence, but they have truly been the source of her exuberant excitement. Hence, all the reason why she loves being the panda, because when she's around them, this kind of makes her become the red panda on purpose. It's not like she can't control it. She can. She realizes it like midway, like seconds after she turns into a red panda. As you've seen in the teaser trailer, she brushes her face, she turns back normal, and then she jumps for joy, she becomes a red panda again. So you've seen the pattern. But her friends have been the source of her exuberant excitement as a teenager rather than the excellence of her as a daughter. Overall, the two halves of Mei's life are completely evened out when the curtains close. And I gotta say, Turning Red gives us one of the best climaxes ever. like on an emotional level, on a grand scale, and on a creative level and a hysterical level too. Like if you thought the drawings weren't the horniest thing to come from this movie or the most out of character thing to come from Pixar's newest release, you gotta watch Climax. You gotta watch Climax. As of right now, Rotten Tomatoes gives Turning Red a 95% recommendation. Turning Red is a non-traditional Pixar film for better or for worse, and what manifests is a transparent story that transcends prevalent topics amongst the youth like teenage rebellion, maturation, adolescence, strong hormones, puberty, and generational heritage, and it compiles it all into arguably the most dense expression to come from Pixar. This is literally the best the artsy idea to come from the 3D animation studio. And I wanted to say something that I wasn't able to say before. The generational heritage. Now, not even about the pandas, but about the families. You know how you know how sometimes I'm not even going to talk about the film, but you know how in life sometimes your parents will your parents will see the way you act as their child, and then no question, I wonder where they get that from. And then the parents, the grandparents call, and then it's obvious where they get that from. It's like this little thing they pass on. So Mei has this strong worry of her overly cautious mother, and Mei's mother, Mei Ming, I think that's her name, Sandra Oh's, the character that Sandra Oh voices, the mother has a similar perspective on her mother, the grandmother in the family. When the grandmother calls, then the mother starts to act like Mei, and then you wonder, and then it makes you realize Mei gets this from her mother, and her mother sees her mother the same way. Okay, let me say it a better way. The way that her mother has seen Mei's grandmother as exactly how Mei sees her mother, that's looking down on her, not looking down on her, but having certain expectations of Mei, just as the grandmother has expectations for the mother. So I love how they put that that slight generational curse reference in there. But like I said, this film goes the distance, which is why it deserves all the glory under Pixar's belt. So for that, I will give it what it deserves, a 9.5 out of 10. I was a little tempted to give it a 10 out of 10, but Incredibles will always have a special place in my heart. But this was unique. This was like a unique, unfiltered, didn't bite his tongue type of storytelling where it felt like your generation, our generation, was heard. So thank you for clicking on this video. Thank you for watching the review. If you have not seen Turning Red, go watch it. Until next time, boots and cats and 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 boots and